It is August 2nd, 2015, at 3 a.m. Thomas Martens calls 911 to report that his son-in-law, Jason Corbett, had been seriously injured.
Davidson County 911, what is the address of your emergency?
My name is Tom Martens. I'm at 160 Panther Creek Court, and we need help.
Okay, what's going on there?
My daughter's husband, my son-in-law, got in a fight with my daughter. I intervened, and I think he's in bad shape. We need help.
A midnight struggle, a deadly blow, and a family shattered forever. Was it self-defense or calculated murder? In the Jason Corbett case, children's shifting testimonies and verdict twists that shocked the community of Walberg, North Carolina. Jason Corbett, originally from Limerick in Western Ireland, lived there with his first wife, Margaret Maggs Fitzpatrick, and their two children, Jack and Sarah. In November 2006, just months after their daughter's birth, Maggs tragically died from a sudden asthma attack.
He had tremendous support from his family, but I think Jason, being the guy that he was, certainly from all his family members, what they said was that he didn't want to be a burden, that he wanted to sort out his life, to put his life on a more permanent footing, and he saw the way to do that was to have au pairs.
As a widower raising two young children, Jason Corbett knew he needed extra help at home. In April 2008, 24-year-old Molly Martens, a beautiful Knoxville, Tennessee native, responded to his au pair advertisement. Jason felt a wave of relief, especially as his children quickly grew fond of her. Before long, their relationship turned romantic, and on Valentine's Day, Jason proposed. 3 years later, in April 2011, after moving to Lexington, North Carolina, Jason and Molly married and settled into a home on Panthers Creek Court in Walberg. Jason purchased the house for $390,000 and also bought Molly a BMW SUV. Although Molly reportedly wanted to adopt Jason's children to secure U.S. citizenship for them, he chose instead to apply for green cards while maintaining their Irish passports. Jason had often spoken of his dream to eventually return to Ireland and open a pizza restaurant in Spanish Point, County Clare.
When they moved to the U.S., I definitely start to notice more verbal altercations and verbal abuse. Jason was yelling at Molly.
In the beginning, things between Jason and Molly seemed perfect, but just as quickly as the sparks flew, their relationship began to unravel. Fights and arguments became a regular occurrence. On August 1st, 2015, Molly's parents were visiting the Corbett household. That day, Tom Martens gifted Jason's son Jack a baseball bat. Later that night, after 11 p.m., the family went to bed. Just a few hours later, around 3 a.m., Tom called 911.
Davidson County 911, what is the address of your emergency?
My name is Tom Martens. I'm at 160 Panther Creek Court, and we need help.
Okay, what's going on there?
My daughter's husband, my son-in-law, got in a fight with my daughter. I intervened, and I think he's in bad shape. We need help.
Okay, what do you mean he's in bad shape? He's hurt?
He's bleeding all over, and I may have killed him.
Tom Martens is a retired FBI agent with 30 years of career experience, including extensive counterintelligence.
All right, okay. Let's back up here just a minute. Give me your address again, make sure I got it right.
160
Panther
Creek Court.
What is your name?
My name is Tom Martens.
All right, Tom, give me the phone number you're calling from. 2 times, please.
I don't know. What's the phone number I'm calling from? I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm the father. I'm visiting. I don't know.
Was he drinking?
Yes, he had been drinking during the course of the day.
My partner's dispatching the ambulance in the office while I get the information.
Okay.
All right, are you right with him now?
I am.
How old is he?
How old is he? 39.
All right. Is he conscious at all?
No.
Is he breathing?
I can't tell.
All right, what I need you to do is I need someone to roll him onto his back, flat on his back.
Okay. Hang on. He's a big, heavy man. I can't do it.
Or is there anyone there that can help you?
My daughter, and she's in terrible shape.
Okay, someone needs to get him on his back. We need to verify his breathing.
I'm trying, lady. Hang on.
Okay, just put your phone on speaker.
Okay, I've got him rolled over.
All right, I want you to put one hand under his neck, the other hand on his forehead, and tilt his head back. Put your ear next to his mouth and tell me if you can see or hear or feel any breathing.
No.
All right, I'm sending the paramedics and ambulance to help you now. Stay on the line.
Okay.
All right, tell me what happened. Did you hit him in the head or?
I hit him in the head
With what?
with a baseball bat.
With a baseball bat.
Yes, ma'am. He was choking my daughter. He said, I'm going to kill her.
All right, we are sending the paramedics to help you now. Where's the baseball bat at?
It's in the bedroom here with me.
Okay. Just don't touch it anymore, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
The dispatcher guided Thomas Martens through CPR, but Thomas, a former FBI agent, mentioned he already had some experience with the procedure. He and Molly took turns performing CPR on Jason. Molly, who also had CPR training from her time as a swim coach, assisted until paramedics arrived. When police arrived at the home on Panthers Creek Court, they found Jason Corbett unresponsive, suffering from severe head injuries that would ultimately prove fatal. At the scene, both Thomas and Molly Martens told officers that Jason's death was the result of a domestic disturbance. In police interviews conducted just hours after Jason Corbett's death, Tom Martens claimed he had been staying overnight at the Corbett home when he was awakened by sounds of a disturbance coming from the master bedroom. Grabbing an aluminum baseball bat, he rushed to the room where he alleged he found Jason strangling his daughter, Molly. According to Tom, a struggle broke out between the two men, during which Molly struck Jason on the head with a paving stone. Tom then said he hit Jason multiple times with the baseball bat. In a separate interview, Molly admitted she had also attempted to hit Jason over the head with a brick during the altercation. She further told police that their marriage had a history of domestic violence, which had led her to seek medical treatment on several occasions, though she never reported the abuse to authorities or disclosed its cause to hospital staff. Molly also accused Jason of being a heavy drinker and claimed he was intoxicated at the time of the fatal incident.
Okay. You know your husband didn't survive his injuries, right?
I didn't think so.
I'm telling you, that guy was crazy. So there's a history of domestic violence at the house?
Yes.
How long has that been going on?
During her police interrogation, Molly claimed that Jason's drinking and violent outbursts had been ongoing for years, though no official reports had ever been filed. She had a dark mark around her neck, which she said was the result of Jason strangling her during the altercation, prompting her father to intervene in her defense. Jason's family, however, strongly disputed Molly's account, calling her allegations a deliberate character assassination. They asserted that in reality, Molly had always been the controlling one in the relationship.
He sees me coming, and he goes around her throat like this. And I said, let her go. It turned like, let her go.
So,
My throat hurts.
you know you got that bruise?
Yeah, that wasn't. It was from another night.
Another night when
Just when he called me.
you had a brick on your nightstand?
Yeah.
What was that for?
The kids and I we were gonna paint these bricks and flowers around the mailbox.
Oh,
I get the bat back. Can't tell you how many times I hit him. I can't tell you. I hit him with the baseball bat. And he reaches out and he grabs the bat. And he's stronger than I am. And he pushes me down. And I'm scrambling on the floor, glasses fall off. Now I'm thinking, You're gonna kill me.
During the police investigation, aspects of Molly's past came under scrutiny, particularly her relationship with the man she dated before moving to Ireland. Molly had met Keith on a dating app, and the two moved in together just 6 weeks after meeting. Keith spoke fondly of Molly, describing her as beautiful and fun to be around. He also revealed that Molly had confided in him about her bipolar disorder, noting that she was on medication and appeared stable at the time. Keith was caught off guard when Molly told him she was pregnant. As the sole breadwinner, he was already struggling financially and felt unprepared for fatherhood. Out of a sense of duty, Keith proposed to Molly, and she accepted. However, shortly after, Molly suffered a miscarriage, which deeply affected their relationship. She experienced profound grief and was later diagnosed with depression. When Molly came across Jason's au pair advertisement, she saw it as the opportunity she had been searching for. Just 10 days later, she left the United States and called Keith to let him know she had accepted a job as an au pair. That phone call was the last time they ever spoke.
The first time I met her, I was just floored because she was stunning. To her credit, she did tell me early on that she had bipolar. She was no longer able to work or anything. She pretty much couldn't keep a job. She couldn't do the nannying stuff anymore. I think we had been together around a year and we got engaged. So then she told me one night that she was going to look for jobs nannying in Europe. And I thought, man, here we go again. One of her crazy ideas. She said, hey, I'm going to go in Ireland. She told me, I think initially she was going to be gone for like a week. And then I think it might have been like 10 days before I heard anything. I knew she was not in a good mental state whatsoever. I didn't know how safe it was for her to be going over and nannying for somebody's children. We had just been in a psych ward, so I knew she wasn't in a mental state to do it. So she finally emailed and said, sorry for not calling you, but I also don't know if I'm ever coming back. I need to move on. What I found out later was that not only did I not exist when she went to Ireland, but she and Jason started a relationship very quickly.
Although Jason's family initially welcomed Molly Martin's relationship with him, their feelings shifted as they grew increasingly concerned about what they described as her deceitful and erratic behavior. Jason's sister, Tracy Lynch, later claimed that Molly had a long history of lying, calling her a fantasist who falsely claimed to have been an Olympic swimmer, a qualified Montessori teacher, and a former foster parent to a young boy. Tracy also recounted that Molly disclosed she was bipolar and had suffered multiple miscarriages before meeting Jason, details that in this case were true. However, Tracy alleged she uncovered more disturbing fabrications. Just before Jason and Molly's wedding, she learned that Molly had told friends she had been pen pals with Jason's first wife, Mags, before Mags died of her, a claim that was untrue, as Mags had passed away suddenly from an asthma attack, and the two had never communicated. Tracy also discovered that Molly had been released from a psychiatric clinic in Georgia shortly before traveling to meet Jason in 2008, and that she only revealed her mental health history weeks before their wedding. Molly reportedly avoided telling neighbors that Jack and Sarah were not her biological children and became enraged when Jack disclosed the truth. During their wedding banquet, Molly allegedly grew highly agitated and screamed at several guests after one of her bridesmaids bought McDonald's food for a young boy who had an egg allergy and couldn't eat the main meal. A family friend later claimed that just days before his death, Jason left a social gathering early after Molly publicly fat-shamed him in front of friends, an incident that deeply embarrassed him as he was sensitive about his weight. According to Tracy, this was the final straw that convinced Jason to return to Ireland without Molly.
She would tell the most blatant lies, and I'd point out to her that she just said the exact opposite thing like an hour before that. So one of them had to be wrong. Saying that she was friends with Jason's former wife who had died tragically anyway. I mean, it's just amazing. The lies that she would say and think that people were going to believe. It's mind-boggling.
4 days after Jason Corbett's death, his two children were interviewed by a social worker about their parents' relationship. During these sessions, transcripts show that Sarah described her father as having anger management issues, while Jack claimed he had witnessed Jason physically assaulting Molly on multiple occasions. However, 9 months later, in a follow-up session with a social worker, Jack recanted his earlier statements. He revealed that Molly had coached him on what to say before the initial interview and had fabricated stories about abusive behavior. In 2007, Jason Corbett drafted a will naming his sister, Tracy Lynch, and her husband as the legal guardians of his children in the event of his untimely death. He never updated the will after marrying Molly Martens. However, just days after Jason's death, Molly formally filed for custody of 10-year-old Jack and 8-year-old Sarah. When Jason's family arrived in the United States, they quickly launched a legal challenge. On August 20th, 2015, authorities dismissed Molly's custody claim and officially granted guardianship of Jack and Sarah to Tracy Lynch, who immediately flew the children back to Ireland. On January 5th, 2016, Molly Martens Corbett and her father, Thomas Martens, were charged with second-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter in connection with Jason Corbett's death. Unsealed indictments revealed that a grand jury had found sufficient probable cause to proceed with the charges. Following their arrests and mugshots, the Davidson Superior Court ordered both Molly and Thomas to surrender their passports and prohibited them from attempting any contact with Jason's children in Ireland. They were each released on a $200,000 bail bond while awaiting trial. Dr. Craig Nelson, an associate pathologist with the North Carolina Chief Medical Examiner's Office, testified in court about the post-mortem examination he conducted on Jason Corbett. Dr. Nelson explained that Corbett's skull was so extensively shattered it was impossible to determine the exact number of blows, but he estimated that Corbett had been struck approximately 12 times in the head. The autopsy also revealed evidence of blunt force trauma. The court also reviewed audio recordings, capturing Jason and Molly arguing and shouting at each other in the presence of their children, providing clear evidence of the toxic and volatile nature of their relationship.
You go again and talk to you, and you're still I'm talking about something else.
Is it true that your father was abusive or false?
False.
What did Molly say?
We were going into an interview. She was saying a lot of making up stories about my dad, saying that he was abusive, and she started saying, if you don't lie, I'll never ever see you again. And I want to know what happened to my dad, and I want justice to be served.
In July 2016, the Martens legal team filed a motion to exclude from evidence Jack Corbett's later interview, in which he recanted his earlier claims that his father had physically abused Molly Martens Corbett. They argued the interview was hearsay and unreliable. During pretrial hearings in June 2017, Tracy Lynch testified that after bringing Jack back to Ireland, he told her that some of the statements he had made to U.S. social workers were untrue. Ultimately, Judge Lee ruled that the children's statements taken shortly after their father's death were inadmissible and could not be presented as evidence. The following month, the Martens attorneys filed a late pretrial motion seeking to block the prosecution from portraying Jason Corbett as having a reputation for being a nonviolent, easygoing person during their presentation to the jury.
Tell me why you're here. My dad died, and people are my aunt and uncle from my dad's side are trying to take me away from my mom. Not what my dad was got, because that's not. Tell me why that's not a good thing. Because he just gets really, really angry. And says, why'd you pick me up? In my mom's room, because it was raining earlier, and we were going to paint it. We didn't want it getting it all wet. Did you physically hurt her? Once or twice. What did you do? Punching, hitting, pushing. Has anyone told you what to say when other people talk to you? I'm just saying, say the truth, yeah. That's all she said.
On August 9th, 2017, after less than 4 hours of deliberation, the jury unanimously found 67-year-old Thomas Martens and his 33-year-old daughter, Molly Martens Corbett, guilty of the second-degree murder of Jason Corbett. Both were sentenced to a minimum of 20 years and a maximum of 25 years in prison, in line with the prosecution's recommendation.
Good evening. A jury has returned a unanimous guilty verdict in the trial of a father and daughter accused of the second-degree murder of Limerick man Jason Corbett. The former FBI agent Thomas Martens and his daughter Molly, who was married to Mr. Corbett, had denied the charge, claiming self-defence. Jason's wife Molly and his father-in-law Thomas Martens are spending their first full days behind bars after being sentenced to a minimum of 20 years in jail for his murder.
During sentencing, District Attorney Gary Frank read a victim impact statement on behalf of then 13-year-old Jack Corbett. In the letter, Jack expressed the profound pain of losing his father just 9 years after the death of his mother. He wrote about how his father had always been there for him but would now never witness him grow up. Addressing Molly directly, Jack declared that she was not, and never would be, part of the Corbett family. He said she would forever be remembered as a murderer who killed her husband for no reason. As Jack's statement was read aloud, Molly was seen wailing uncontrollably, and several jurors reportedly broke into tears. In later media interviews, jurors revealed they did not believe Jason had attacked Molly that night, and that the sheer number of blows he suffered made claims of self-defense implausible. Jason's sister, Tracy Lynch, later stated she believed the motive for his murder was Molly's fear of losing custody of the children, as Jason had planned to return to Ireland without her. Prosecutors also suggested other possible motives, including Molly's interest in adopting the children and her potential desire to claim Jason's $600,000 life insurance policy.
Molly and Tom Martens' lawyers are pushing for a retrial and say statements made by Jack and Sarah Corbett to social services should be admissible as evidence.
Molly and her father, Thomas Martens, have been released on bail after the courts overturned their murder convictions.
On March the 12th, 2021, the North Carolina Supreme Court, in a 4-3 decision, ruled that Molly Martens Corbett and her father, Thomas Martens, were entitled to a new trial in connection with the death of Jason Corbett.
Jason Corbett's family say his orphaned teenage children are willing to give evidence at a retrial for the Limerick man's murder in the United States.
Sharon Martens was never questioned. To me, that's amazing. She was still an adult witness in the house, within the house, not just in the area, in the house. The police didn't interview her, so that is really on them.
The court upheld an earlier appeals court decision that quashed their 2017 convictions, finding that key statements made by Jason's children to investigators in the aftermath of his death had been improperly excluded from use by the defense during the original trial. In response, Jack and Sarah Corbett indicated their willingness to testify against the Martens if those earlier statements were introduced by the defense at a retrial. On October 30th, 2023, both Molly and Thomas Martens accepted plea deals in Davidson County Superior Court, agreeing to plead to Class D manslaughter charges in exchange for the dismissal of the murder charges. In early November, Molly entered a no-contest plea to voluntary manslaughter, while Thomas pled guilty to the same charge. On November 9th, 2023, both were sentenced to between 51 and 74 months in prison. With credit for time already served, it was anticipated they would serve only about 7 additional months before becoming eligible for release. At the resentencing hearing, 19-year-old Jack and 17-year-old Sarah Corbett delivered powerful victim impact statements in court. Sarah described how she had endured years of therapy because her childhood statements had been manipulated and used to help the Martenses avoid full accountability. She spoke of how Molly had devastated their family, showing no remorse, removing her wedding ring almost immediately after Jason's death, and coldly telling Sarah to stop crying and get over it in the days that followed. Jack implored the judge not to be deceived by Molly, calling her a monster who had abused him and exploited his earlier words in an attempt to evade justice. As the siblings spoke, Molly wept loudly and eventually buried her face on the table in front of her. On June 6, 2024, Molly Martens Corbett and Thomas Martens were released from prison after completing their sentences for the voluntary manslaughter of Jason Corbett. Jason Corbett's children, Jack, now 20, and Sarah, now 18, still live in Ireland under the guardianship of their aunt, Tracy Corbett Lynch, and her husband, David. Sarah has authored a book titled A Time for Truth, in which she shares a harrowing account of the trauma and abuse that she and her brother Jack endured at the hands of their stepmother. Sarah explains that her motivation for writing the book was to ensure people could see the whole story and fully understand how events escalated to such a tragic outcome.
First of all, this is an astonishing book. I mean, it's vivid, it's heartfelt, it moves you to tears, but it's so accomplished, and you're only 18.
Thanks.
It's extraordinary. Why did you decide to write the book?
Well, I decided to write the book because we had no voice. We weren't allowed to give evidence. We were under a gag order, so we couldn't even speak to media. And when I lived with the Martens, I had no voice either. I had no control over my own thoughts. And I wanted to tell my story. I wanted people to understand what actually happened inside of our home.
Tom Martens is currently residing in Knoxville, Tennessee, where he remains under probation supervision. Under North Carolina prisoner release regulations, his daughter is not permitted to live in the same household during this period. Molly Martens, now 41, is living in a rented basement apartment near her parents' home after U.S. authorities approved the transfer of her parole supervision to a different state. Once her probation supervision ends, she will be allowed to move back into her parents' residence. A Netflix documentary exploring the death of Jason Corbett, titled A Deadly American Marriage, is set for release in May 2025. The film features interviews with Corbett's children, as well as exclusive conversations with both Tom Martens and Molly Martens Corbett.